Welcome to today's journey through one of history's most decisive battles, where the fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance. Picture this: a hilltop fortress in ancient Gaul, surrounded by the most sophisticated military engineering the world had ever seen. Inside the walls, 80,000 Celtic warriors and their families face starvation, their children crying for bread that will never come. Outside, 60,000 of Rome's finest legionaries tightened their grip like a steel noose, their tools of construction becoming instruments of annihilation. This is Alesia, 52 BCE, where Julius Caesar deployed a secret weapon so devastating it would end Celtic independence forever. But what was this mysterious weapon that could bring an entire people to their knees? Was it some revolutionary siege engine capable of breaching any wall? A new military formation that could crush any army? A plague deliberately spread through enemy ranks? Or perhaps something far more cunning and brutal than anything the Celtic tribes had ever encountered? Today, we'll uncover the truth behind Caesar's most ingenious and ruthless strategy. A weapon forged not from iron or bronze, not from wood or stone, but from the very landscape itself, transformed through Roman genius into an instrument of total destruction. The story begins 8 years earlier, when Rome first cast its hungry eyes toward the rich lands of Gaul, seeing not just territory to conquer, but an entire civilization to absorb, digest, and ultimately erase. What followed was a campaign of conquest that would reshape the ancient world, culminating in a final, desperate stand that would determine whether Celtic culture would survive or vanish beneath Roman sandals forever. The secret weapon Caesar unleashed at Alesia wouldn't just win him a battle. It would demonstrate a new kind of warfare that combined engineering genius with psychological warfare, economic strangulation, and systematic cultural destruction on an unprecedented scale. But to understand the true horror of what happened at Alesia, we must first journey back to a time when Celtic warriors ruled the lands from Ireland to Turkey, when their culture flourished across Europe, when their druids held wisdom that would be lost forever in the Weisvor, in the Turkey, when their culture flourished across Europe, when their druids held wisdom that would be lost forever in the Fenzians, flames of Roman conquest. We must witness the gradual, methodical destruction of a people whose only crime was standing in Rome's path to empire. Are you ready to witness how one man's military brilliance condemned an entire civilization to extinction? How engineering became genocide? How progress became annihilation? Let's journey back to ancient Gaul, where the clash between two worlds would echo through history, leaving scars that time itself cannot heal. Chapter 1. The world before Rome. Before Roman eagles ever darkened Gallic skies, before the thunder of legionary boots echoed through ancient forests, the lands beyond the Alps pulse with a vibrant Celtic civilization that would make even Rome's sophisticates gasp in wonder. Picture vast oak forests stretching endlessly toward the horizon, their canopies so thick that perpetual twilight reigns beneath their branches. These are sacred groves where druids conduct mysteries older than Rome itself, where massive trees mark the graves of heroes whose deeds echo in bardic songs. Between these forests lie fertile valleys where tribal settlements flourish, their roundhouses clustered around hilltop fortresses that have stood for centuries. This is Gaul in the 1st century BC, not the barbaric wasteland Roman propaganda depicts to justify conquest, but a sophisticated tapestry of interconnected tribes, each with their own customs, gods, languages, and fierce independence that burns brighter than forge fires. The morning mist rises from the Rhine River as merchants from a dozen tribes gather at the great trading post of Chalon, their wagons loaded with goods that span the known world. British tin mingles with Spanish silver, Baltic amber rests beside Mediterranean coral, while Celtic craftsmen display metalwork so exquisite that Roman collectors pay fortunes for a single piece. The Helvetii control the Alpine passes like gateway guardians, growing rich from trade routes connecting northern and southern Europe. Their warriors are legendary throughout the Celtic world, their metalwork so sophisticated that Roman smiths struggled to duplicate their techniques. Watch a Helvetii swordsmith at work. His forge burns with charcoal and imparts strength beyond. Roman steel, his hammer rings with rhythms passed down through generations. His blade emerges, bearing patterns that seem to flow like water frozen in metal. To the east, the Germanic Cimbri and Teutones have already tested Roman metal, nearly destroying several legions before being crushed by Marius decades earlier. Their defeat sends ripples of unease throughout the Celtic world. If Germania's fiercest tribes could fall to Roman organization, what hope exists for divided Gaul? But it asks the Gallic tribes that truly command attention. The Aedui, with their sprawling oppida perched on hilltops, like eagles' nests, their territories stretching across fertile lands that feed half of Gaul. The Sequani control vital river crossings, where they levy tolls that fund armies capable of challenging any Celtic rival. And most formidable of all, the Arverni, whose influence stretches across central Gaul like a spider's web. Their capital at Gergovia rising from volcanic stone, as if born from the earth itself. These aren't primitive barbarians cowering in mud huts as Roman historians would have their readers believe. Celtic society has evolved into a complex hierarchy that would rival any Mediterranean civilization for sophistication. At the apex stand the Druids, priests, judges, and keepers of sacred knowledge, whose wisdom spans everything from astronomy to law, from medicine to poetry. Their training requires 20 years of memorization, for they trust nothing to writing, believing that sacred knowledge must live in human memory, where it remains pure and uncontaminated by foreign influence. Below the Druids come the nobles, warriors, craftsmen, and merchants whose wealth can rival Roman senators. Their roundhouses, far from primitive hovels, are marvels of engineering adapted to Celtic needs. Massive timber frames support walls of wattle and daub that provide better insulation than Roman brick, while conical roofs shed rain and snow with mathematical precision. Inside, hearth fires burn in bronze-lined pits, while families gather around intricately carved furniture that demonstrates Celtic artistry at its finest. Women wear jewelry that incorporates gold from Ireland, amber from the Baltic, and gems from the Alps. Their textiles dyed in colors that Roman wives envy but cannot duplicate. Their oppida, fortified hilltop towns, rival Mediterranean cities in size and sophistication. Their walls incorporating engineering principles that Roman architects study with grudging admiration. Bibracte, capital of the Aedui, sprawls across its hilltop like a stone crown, its walls following natural contours while incorporating artificial defenses that multiply their effectiveness. Within these walls live craftsmen whose skills astonish visitors, metalworkers who create objects of beauty and utility, potters whose vessels grace nobles' tables throughout Gaul, woodworkers who craft everything from war chariots to merchant wagons with equal skill. The Celts mint their own coins, stamping them with symbols that tell stories of tribal history and divine favor. They trade across vast distances through networks that span from Britain to the Black Sea, their merchants as comfortable in Germanic forests as Mediterranean ports. Most remarkably, they maintain oral traditions so complex they require 20 years of training to master, epic poems that preserve tribal history, legal codes that govern everything from marriage to warfare, astronomical knowledge that predicts celestial events with uncanny accuracy. Celtic warfare follows ancient traditions that emphasize honor and individual prowess above all else. Picture a Celtic warrior preparing for battle, his body painted with woad in patterns that invoke divine protection, his hair bleached with lime until it stands in spikes that add inches to his height, his mustache groomed to cascade over his chest like a waterfall of gold. He wears a torque of twisted gold around his neck, marking his status as a free warrior accountable to no man save his chosen chief. His shield bears designs that tell his lineage, His sword has a name passed down through generations. His spear thirsts for blood and glory. When Celtic armies march to war, the earth trembles beneath their feet, and the air fills with war cries that can be heard for miles. Horns blow in harmonies that invoke ancient gods, while bards sing of heroes whose deeds inspire ordinary men to extraordinary courage. Warriors charge into battle seeking personal glory above tactical advantage, their courage legendary throughout the ancient world. They fight with long swords designed for slashing attacks, trusting in valor and divine favor rather than disciplined formations. Their war cries shake the earth. Their appearance strikes terror into enemies' hearts. Their willingness to die for honor makes them formidable opponents in any battle. Many tribes practice headhunting, believing the soul resides in the head of fallen enemies. They display these trophies in their homes and temples, not from barbarism but from spiritual conviction that they've captured their enemy's essence. This is warfare as ritual, as spiritual practice, as the ultimate test of manhood that separates boys from warriors and warriors from heroes. But storm clouds gather on the southern horizon, bearing omens that wise druids read with growing concern. Rome has been expanding steadily northward, absorbing Greek colonies along the Mediterranean coast, establishing the province of Gallia Narbonensis as a foothold beyond the Alps. What begins as defensive measures against Germanic raids gradually becomes aggressive expansion as Roman appetite grows with feeding. Roman merchants penetrate deeper into Gallic territory each year, bringing not just goods, but intelligence about tribal politics, trade routes, military capabilities, and internal divisions. The eagle is watching, waiting, calculating with predatory patience. These merchants aren't merely traders, they're advanced scouts for conquest, carefully mapping every path, counting every warrior, noting every rivalry that might be exploited. They establish trading posts that become intelligence centers. They're seemingly innocent commercial activities, masking systematic intelligence gathering that would impress any military commander. Roman coins begin appearing in Celtic markets. Roman customs influence Celtic practices. Roman promises of protection and prosperity find receptive ears among nobles who see advantage in accommodation rather than resistance. Celtic society, for all its sophistication and strength, carries within itself the seeds of its own destruction. Tribal rivalries run as deep as mountain roots, alliances shift like autumn leaves in the wind, and personal ambition often trumps collective interest. The Druids speak eloquently of Celtic unity and shared heritage, but warriors still fight for individual glory and tribal advantage. Chiefs compete for prestige and territory, their ambitions creating the divisions that Roman diplomacy will exploit with surgical precision. The class system that gives Celtic society its structure also creates vulnerabilities that enemies can exploit. Slaves long for freedom. Commoners resent noble privilege. Younger sons seek opportunities that traditional hierarchy denies them. Into these cracks seep Roman promises: citizenship for barbarians, advancement for the ambitious, protection for the vulnerable. What seems like strength to Celtic eyes appears as weakness to Roman analysis. The year 59 BCE finds Gaul prosperous but restless, like a horse sensing the approach of wolves. Population pressures strain tribal territories as successful tribes outgrow their traditional boundaries. Germanic tribes press from across the Rhine, driven by their own population explosion and seeking the rich lands that Gallic prosperity has created. Political tensions simmer between pro-Roman and independence factions within each tribe, as some nobles see accommodation as wisdom while others view it as treason. Weather patterns shift, bringing harsher winters and more variable harvests that stress traditional agricultural systems. Trade disruptions caused by Germanic pressure affect tribal economies, while Roman competition undercuts traditional Celtic commercial relationships. The very success that makes Gaul attractive to Roman conquest creates internal pressures that will facilitate Roman victory. Into this volatile mixture steps a figure who will change everything: and ambitious. Roman politician with crushing debts to pay and immortal glory to win, armed with the most professional military machine the world has ever seen. Gaius Julius Caesar brings more than legions to Gaul. He brings a systematic approach to conquest that will transform warfare itself. The stage is set for collision between two worlds that cannot coexist. On one side stands Celtic Gaul, proud, brave, sophisticated, and tragically divided. On the other waits Rome, disciplined, ruthless, unified, and hungry for expansion. The contest will determine not just political control, but the very survival of Celtic civilization. The secret weapon that will ultimately decide this struggle hasn't been forged yet, but the conditions for its creation are already falling into place like pieces on a game board where only one player understands the rules. Chapter 2. Caesar's ambition. Gaius Julius Caesar strides through the marble corridors of the Senate House in Rome, his toga pristinely white against bronze skin, his calculating mind processing every political angle like a master chess player contemplating his next dozen moves. It's 59 BCE, and the man who will become history's most famous conqueror faces a crisis that would crush lesser mortals, crushing debt that measures in the tens of millions of denarii, powerful enemies who smell blood in the water, and the very real possibility of prosecution and exile that would end not just his career, but his life. Yet Caesar sees opportunity where others see disaster, his eyes turning northward toward the unconquered lands of Gaul, where glory and gold await in equal measure. Caesar's debt isn't merely financial, it's existential. Roman politics operates on a brutal calculus where advancement requires expenditure on a scale that would bankrupt kingdoms. To win elections, a candidate must provide games that satisfy the mob, bribes that secure critical votes, and favors that bind supporters through obligations stronger than law. Caesar has played this game with legendary extravagance, spending borrowed money like water to purchase the consulship that represents the pinnacle of Roman achievement. But the bills are coming due, and his creditors aren't patient men. Worse still, Caesar's political enemies circle like sharks sensing weakness. Cato the Younger leads the conservative faction that views Caesar as a dangerous radical threatening traditional Roman values. These men aren't just political opponents. They're moral enemies who would happily see Caesar destroyed financially, legally, and physically if they could manage it. They've already demonstrated their ruthlessness by driving other populist leaders into exile or death, and Caesar knows he's next on their list unless he can find protection through success so spectacular it makes him untouchable. Caesar's path to this moment has been masterfully orchestrated through a combination of political genius, military competence, and breathtaking audacity. As Pontifex Maximus, he controls Rome's religious calendar, giving him power to manipulate the timing of political events. As consul, he wields supreme executive power that allows him to push through legislation his enemies cannot stop. Through his secret alliance with Pompey the Great and Marcus Crassus, the so-called First Triumvirate, he has neutralized his most dangerous political enemies while securing the backing he needs for unprecedented commands. But consulships last only 1 year, and Caesar needs something more permanent, more profitable, more spectacular than managing the routine business of Roman government. He needs a proconsulship that will provide both the time and resources to achieve something so magnificent that it will overshadow even Pompey's eastern conquests. More critically, he needs military success on a scale that will generate enough wealth to pay his debts while providing the political capital necessary to survive his enemies' inevitable attacks. The governorship of Gallia Cisalpina and Gallia Narbonensis, essentially northern Italy and southern France, offers the perfect launching pad for the kind of spectacular campaign Caesar envisions. Previous governors have been content to manage these relatively peaceful provinces, collecting modest profits from taxation and trade, while avoiding the risks that come with aggressive expansion. But Caesar has grander visions that dwarf such conservative thinking. He studies maps of unconquered Gaul with the intensity of a lover examining his beloved's face, interviews merchants who trade beyond Roman frontiers, and carefully cultivates relationships with pro-Roman Gallic nobles who might serve as collaborators in future operations. Caesar isn't just planning to govern a province, he's preparing to conquer a continent, and every detail of his preparation reflects this ambitious goal. He recruits officers based on loyalty and competence rather than social connections, understanding that conquest requires subordinates who can think independently while executing orders with absolute precision. He studies Celtic culture, language, and military practices with the thoroughness of a scholar, recognizing that successful conquest requires understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. Caesar's military background, while impressive by conventional standards, has been largely conventional in scope and execution. He served as quaestor in Spain, showing competence, but not the brilliance that would mark his later campaigns. His command in the Social War demonstrated courage and tactical skill, but nothing suggested the revolutionary military genius that would soon emerge. Even his naval operations against pirates, while successful, followed established Roman methods rather than introducing significant innovations. Yet those who look closely can detect telling details that hint at future greatness. Caesar pays extraordinary attention to logistics, understanding that armies march on their stomachs and fight with properly maintained equipment. He demonstrates an unusual ability to inspire fierce loyalty among subordinates, not through fear or bribery, but through shared hardship and genuine concern for their welfare. Most remarkably, Caesar shows a willingness to share dangers with common soldiers that breaks with traditional Roman class distinctions, earning him devotion that transcends normal military discipline. These qualities will prove crucial in the campaigns ahead, but they represent only the foundation of Caesar's revolutionary approach to warfare. What makes Caesar truly dangerous is his recognition that military success in Gaul will require innovations that go far beyond traditional Roman methods. Celtic warfare emphasizes mobility, individual courage, and intimate knowledge of local terrain, advantages that could neutralize traditional Roman superiority in discipline and engineering if not properly countered. Caesar begins developing solutions to these challenges even before setting foot in Gaul. He experiments with new formations that combine Roman discipline with enhanced mobility, new siege techniques designed specifically for Celtic fortifications, and new ways of using engineering as both defensive tool and offensive weapon. His legions will maintain their famous discipline and training, but they'll also learn to adapt, innovate, and think beyond traditional Roman military doctrine. The opportunity Caesar seeks arrives through the mysterious workings of Gallic politics, as tribal conflicts create exactly the kind of intervention justification that Roman law requires for foreign campaigns. The Helvetii, pressed by Germanic tribal expansion and facing severe overpopulation in their Alpine territories, make the fateful decision to migrate westward through Roman territory to reach the fertile plains near the Atlantic coast. Their planned movement would bring an armed force larger than most armies directly through the heart of Roman territory, potentially destabilizing the entire region while setting a precedent that could encourage similar migrations. When Helvetii ambassadors arrive in Rome requesting permission to cross Roman territory, Caesar sees his opportunity crystallizing like salt from seawater. Here is exactly the kind of threat that justifies extraordinary measures, the kind of crisis that demands immediate military response, the kind of situation that could transform a routine provincial governorship into the foundation for immortal glory. But Caesar faces a fundamental strategic challenge that previous Roman commanders have never fully resolved. Roman military doctrine has evolved for Mediterranean warfare against civilized enemies who fight according to established conventions. Roman tactics emphasize discipline, engineering, and siege warfare, techniques that work brilliantly against enemies who cooperate by meeting Roman forces in conventional battles. Celtic warriors excel at mobility, ambush, and individual combat in difficult terrain, advantages that could neutralize Roman superiority if not properly managed. Caesar's genius lies in his recognition that he must revolutionize Roman warfare to succeed against Celtic opponents. This doesn't mean abandoning Roman advantages. Discipline, training, and organization remain crucial, but rather adapting these strengths to new tactical and strategic situations. Caesar begins experimenting with hybrid formations that combine traditional Roman virtues with enhanced flexibility. New engineering techniques that can create artificial advantages on any battlefield, and innovative logistics that allow Roman forces to operate far from traditional supply bases. Most importantly, Caesar recognizes that conquering Gaul requires more than military victory. It demands the systematic destruction of Celtic culture, identity, and independence. Previous Roman conquests had incorporated defeated enemies into the Roman system, while allowing them to maintain many traditional practices. But Celtic society's decentralized structure and fierce independence make such accommodation impossible. Caesar, as secret weapon, will ultimately represent the culmination of this brutal philosophy, not just defeating Celtic armies, but eliminating the possibility of future resistance through comprehensive cultural destruction. The man preparing to invade Gaul stands at the pinnacle of Roman society, yet also balances on the edge of disaster. Success will bring wealth beyond imagination, glory to eclipse even Pompey's achievements, and political security that will protect him from any enemy. Failure means bankruptcy, exile, or death, the traditional fate of ambitious Romans who overreach their capabilities. As Caesar reviews his legions in their training camps and studies his carefully prepared maps, he's already envisioning the secret weapon that will ultimately destroy Celtic resistance, though he doesn't yet know its precise form. Caesar understands instinctively that conquering Gaul requires more than tactical brilliance or strategic insight. It demands the creation of an entirely new approach to warfare that combines military science with political manipulation, engineering with psychology, systematic conquest with cultural annihilation. Every battle fought, every siege conducted, every diplomatic maneuver executed in the coming years will contribute to forging this ultimate instrument of conquest, the secret weapon that destroys. Celtic civilization at Alesia will emerge organically from the systematic application of Roman intelligence to the problem of total domination. Chapter 3. The Helvetii Gambit, spring 58 BCE, brings Caesar to the shores of Lake Geneva, where destiny awaits in the form of 300,000 migrating Helvetii. These Celtic people have burned their own towns and villages, loading their possessions into wagons for a journey westward that will either establish them in new lands or destroy them entirely. Caesar watches from Roman territory as this massive migration begins, seeing not a humanitarian crisis, but the perfect pretext for intervention. The Helvetii present Caesar with exactly the kind of threat that justifies extreme measures. Their passage through Roman territory would bring an armed force larger than most armies directly through the heart of Gallic civilization. Other tribes might join them, creating an unstoppable wave of migration that could threaten Rome itself. At least, that's how Caesar frames the situation in his dispatches to the Senate, but the reality is more complex. The Helvetii aren't invaders seeking to destroy Roman power. They're refugees fleeing Germanic pressure, hoping to find new homes in Western Gaul. Their leaders, including the ambitious Orgetorix, have negotiated with other Gallic tribes for safe passage. They see their migration as an internal Gallic affair, having little to do with Rome. Caesar thinks differently. When Helvetii ambassadors request permission to cross Roman territory, he demands time to consider their proposal. Then he uses those precious weeks to summon additional legions from their winter quarters and begin construction of a massive fortification along the Rhine River. This isn't just military preparation. It is the first demonstration of the engineering revolution that will ultimately doom Celtic independence. The fortifications Caesar builds stretches for 19 miles, consisting of a rampart 16 feet high topped with stakes, fronted by a deep ditch and protected by hidden traps. This defensive line incorporates lessons learned from previous Celtic wars, designed specifically to neutralize the Helvetii's advantages in mobility and numbers. Most importantly, it demonstrates that Roman engineering can literally reshape the battlefield itself. When the Helvetii arrive to find their planned route blocked by these formidable defenses, they face an impossible choice. They can attack the fortifications directly, suffering massive casualties against prepared positions, or they can seek an alternative route through tribal territories that may or may not grant permission. Caesar has engineered a situation where every option available to the Helvetii plays into his hands. The Helvetii choose to negotiate passage through Sequani territory, but this apparent defeat for Caesar actually advances his larger strategy. By forcing the migration away from Roman territory, he's created chaos throughout Gaul that will require further Roman intervention to resolve. The Helvetii's movement threatens the Aedui, Rome's most important Gallic allies, providing perfect justification for military action. Caesar, as pursuit of the Helvetii across Gaul, demonstrates the mobility and logistics that will characterize his entire campaign. His legions move with unprecedented speed, supplied by a baggage train that's been streamlined through careful planning. While the Helvetii lumber westward with their wagons and families, Caesar's forces strike like lightning, choosing the time and place for battle. The climactic encounter comes near Bibracte, where Caesar deploys his legions in the revolutionary formation that will become his trademark. Instead of the traditional Roman battle line, he positions his forces on a hillside, using terrain to multiply their effectiveness. When 70,000 Helvetii warriors charge uphill against prepared positions, they discover that courage alone cannot overcome superior tactics and position. The Battle of Bibracte becomes a slaughter. Celtic bravery proves worthless against Roman discipline when the battlefield has been carefully chosen and prepared. The surviving Helvetii surrender unconditionally, agreeing to return to their burned homeland under Roman supervision. But Caesar's victory accomplishes something far more significant than defeating a single tribe. It demonstrates to all Gaul that traditional Celtic warfare cannot defeat Roman innovation. The psychological impact of the Helvetii's destruction reverberates throughout Gaul. Here was one of the most powerful Celtic peoples, destroyed in a single campaign by a Roman force a fraction of their size. Caesar doesn't just defeat the Helvetii, he reshapes the entire political landscape of Gaul, creating the conditions for further intervention and eventual conquest. Chapter 4. The rise of Ariovistus. As news of the Helvetii's destruction spreads through Gaul, a more dangerous threat emerges from across the Rhine. Ariovistus, king of the Germanic Suebi, has been expanding his influence in eastern Gaul for over a decade, leading 120,000 of his people across the river to settle in Sequani territory. This isn't migration, it's conquest, backed by Germanic military might that even Roman veterans find intimidating. Ariovistus presents a fundamentally different challenge than the Helvetii. Where the Celtic tribes fight according to established traditions and honor codes, the Germanic king employs a brutal pragmatism that shocks even hardened Roman soldiers. His warriors are taller than Gauls, more ferocious in battle, and completely indifferent to casualties. They fight not for individual glory but for tribal survival, making them far more dangerous opponents. The Sequani, who invited Ariovistus to help them against their rivals, the Aedui, now find themselves under foreign domination. The Germanic king has seized a third of their territory and demands another third for additional settlers arriving from across the Rhine. What began as a typical Gallic political alliance has become a conquest that threatens to Germanize all of eastern Gaul. Caesar initially tries diplomacy, summoning Ariovistus to a conference near Vesontio. The meeting reveals two fundamentally different approaches to power. Caesar represents Roman legal authority, backed by the Senate's mandate and centuries of legal precedent. Ariovistus embodies Germanic might makes right philosophy, claiming his conquests through military victory and caring nothing for Roman law or Gallic politics. The psychological warfare begins before any swords are drawn. Ariovistus sends word that he'll meet Caesar only if the Roman comes to him, treating the governor of Gaul like a subordinate petitioning for favor. When Caesar refuses, Ariovistus responds with contemptuous messages, questioning Roman courage and threatening to cross the Rhine with even larger forces. But the real psychological victory belongs to Ariovistus. Reports of Germanic ferocity spread through Caesar's legions, creating the first real crisis of confidence in the campaign. These are veteran soldiers who destroyed the Helvetii without breaking stride, yet they whisper fearfully about Germanic size and strength. Some centurions request leave, claiming family emergencies. Others make wills and settle debts as if expecting death. Caesar faces a moment that will define his entire Gallic command. If Germanic propaganda can break Roman morale before battle is even joined, his entire strategy collapses. This crisis forces Caesar to develop the leadership techniques that will make him legendary, the ability to inspire confidence through personal charisma and shared danger. In a famous speech to his assembled legions, Caesar turns Germanic advantages into weaknesses. Yes, the Germans are large and fierce, but they lack Roman discipline and engineering. Yes, they've defeated Gallic tribes, but Gauls lack Roman training and organization. Most importantly, Caesar reminds his soldiers that they are not just fighting for conquest or glory. They are defending Roman civilization against barbarian chaos. The speech works, but Caesar knows words alone won't be enough. He needs a victory so decisive it will shatter Germanic prestige throughout the region. When battle finally comes in the Vosges foothills, Caesar employs the same tactical innovation that destroyed the Helvetii. Careful choice of terrain combined with disciplined execution. Ariovistus leads his warriors in the traditional Germanic charge, a terrifying display of raw aggression that has broken countless enemies. But Roman shields lock together, Roman short swords work efficiently in close combat, and Roman cavalry strikes the Germanic flanks with perfect timing. The battle becomes another demonstration that disciplined professionalism defeats individual courage when properly applied. The destruction of Ariovistus shatters Germanic prestige and sends surviving tribes fleeing back across the Rhine. But more importantly for Caesar's long-term strategy, it demonstrates to Gallic observers that neither Celtic valor nor Germanic ferocity can stand against Roman military science. The secret weapon that will ultimately destroy Celtic independence. The systematic application of engineering and psychology to warfare is already taking shape. Caesar doesn't just defeat enemies. He provides object lessons in the futility of resistance. Each victory makes the next conquest easier, not through intimidation alone, but through the growing realization that Roman methods represent an entirely new form of warfare that traditional opponents cannot counter. Chapter 5. The Belgian Confederation Winter 57 BCE brings disturbing intelligence to Caesar's headquarters. Across northern Gaul, the Belgian tribes are abandoning their traditional rivalries to forge an unprecedented confederation. The Belgi, fierce warriors who pride themselves on never having submitted to foreign rule, have witnessed Rome, a systematic conquest of central and eastern Gaul. Now they prepare for the fight of their lives. The Belgian Confederation represents everything Caesar fears most: unified, Celtic resistance backed by numerical superiority and intimate knowledge of local terrain. The Belgi can field nearly 300,000 warriors, drawn from dozens of tribes stretching from the Atlantic to the Rhine. Unlike previous enemies who fought as individual tribes, this alliance coordinates strategy, shares resources, and presents a united front against Roman expansion. Leading this coalition is Bibracte of the Eburones, a charismatic warrior king whose hatred of Rome burns with religious intensity. Beside him stands Caverinus of the Senones, whose political acumen matches his military skill. Together, they've achieved what many thought impossible, convincing traditionally independent Belgian tribes to subordinate individual interests to collective survival. Caesar recognizes that this confederation poses an existential threat to his entire Gallic strategy. Previous victories depended on fighting isolated opponents who couldn't coordinate their efforts. Now he faces an enemy that learns from his tactics, adapts to his methods, and commands resources that dwarf his own forces. The comfortable Roman advantages in discipline and engineering mean nothing when facing such overwhelming numbers. The campaign begins with Caesar attempting to divide the confederation through diplomacy and bribery. Roman agents work to exploit traditional rivalries, offering favorable terms to tribes willing to abandon the alliance. Some smaller tribes waver, tempted by Roman gold and intimidated by reports of what happens to those who resist. But the core of the confederation holds firm, bound together by shared recognition that this is their last chance. When negotiation fails, Caesar employs the psychological warfare that has become his trademark. He doesn't attack the Belgian army directly. Instead, he systematically destroys their supply sources and civilian settlements. Roman efficiency and devastation shocks even hardened Celtic warriors. Entire villages disappear in a single day, their populations either enslaved or scattered. The message is clear. Resistance brings not just military defeat but cultural annihilation. The Belgi respond with their own psychological tactics, drawing Caesar's forces into heavily forested terrain where Roman formations lose their effectiveness. Belgian warriors excel at ambush and harassment, turning every stream crossing and forest path into a potential killing ground. For the first time in the Gallic Wars, Caesar finds himself reacting to enemy initiatives rather than dictating the terms of engagement. The decisive moment comes at the Sabis River, where Belgian forces nearly destroy Caesar's army through a perfectly executed surprise attack. While Roman soldiers are establishing camp, thinking themselves safe behind their defensive perimeter, 60,000 Belgian warriors explode from the forest in a coordinated assault that catches the legions completely unprepared. Only Caesar's personal intervention saves the day. Racing from sector to sector, the Roman commander rallies broken units, plugs gaps in the line, and somehow maintains enough cohesion to prevent total collapse. His presence on the front lines, sharing danger with common soldiers, demonstrates the leadership style that will make him beloved by his legions throughout the coming campaigns. But the near disaster at the Sabis River teaches Caesar crucial lessons about Belgian tactics and determination. These enemies won't be destroyed through simple battlefield superiority. They require a more sophisticated approach that combines military pressure with political manipulation and systematic demoralization. The campaign culminates in the siege of several Belgian strongholds, where Caesar first employs the engineering techniques that will reach perfection at Alesia. Belgian fortifications are formidable, built on naturally strong positions and defended by desperate warriors. But Roman siege craft proves superior, methodically reducing each position through combination of assault, starvation, and psychological pressure. The collapse of the Belgian Confederation marks another milestone in Caesar's systematic conquest of Gaul. But more importantly, it demonstrates the evolution of his secret weapon, the integration of engineering, psychology, and political manipulation into a comprehensive system for destroying not just armies, but entire civilizations. Chapter 6. Veneti Defiance. The year 56 BCE brings Caesar face to face with an entirely new challenge. The Veneti, masters of the Atlantic coast, possess something no previous enemy has commanded: naval supremacy. Their massive oak ships dominate the treacherous waters off Brittany, making them virtually immune to traditional Roman land-based campaigns. But Caesar's genius lies in his ability to adapt Roman methods to any environment, even the stormy Atlantic. The Veneti present a unique form of Celtic civilization. Unlike their inland cousins who depend on agriculture and overland trade, these maritime people have built their wealth through seaborne commerce. Their ships carry tin from Britain, amber from the Baltic, and exotic goods from the mysterious lands beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Their coastal strongholds, built on rocky promontories and islands, seem impregnable to land-based assault. But Caesar sees opportunity where others see impossibility. The Veneti's naval supremacy masks a crucial weakness: their scattered settlements depend entirely on maritime communication and supply. If he can somehow challenge their dominance at sea, their entire civilization becomes vulnerable. The question is how a landlocked Roman army can engage an enemy that fights from ships. The conflict begins when the Veneti arrest Roman envoys sent to secure grain supplies for Caesar's legions. This apparent diplomatic incident provides perfect justification for Roman intervention, but everyone involved understands the deeper stakes. The Veneti are testing whether Roman expansion can be contained by controlling strategic waterways. Caesar must prove that Roman military science can overcome any obstacle, even the ocean itself. Caesar's first attempts to reach Veneti strongholds demonstrate the futility of conventional assault. Their settlements rise from rocky islands accessible only at high tide, connected to the mainland by narrow causeways that defenders can easily block. When Roman soldiers do reach these positions, they find massive stone walls built with expert knowledge of local conditions. Traditional siege techniques prove useless against fortifications designed to withstand Atlantic storms. The real revelation comes when Caesar first encounters Veneti warships. These vessels dwarf Roman galleys, their oak hulls rising from the water like floating fortresses. Bronze rams that easily sink Mediterranean ships barely scratch Veneti oak. Roman grappling hooks cannot reach their high decks. Most critically, Veneti ships draw too much water for Roman vessels to follow them into the shallow coastal waters where they conduct most operations. Facing his first purely naval enemy, Caesar responds with characteristic innovation. He orders his shipwrights to design new vessels specifically for Atlantic conditions. These Roman adaptations feature higher sides to match Veneti ships, reinforced rams to penetrate oak hulls, and shallow drafts for coastal operations. But ship construction takes time, and Caesar needs more immediate solutions. The key breakthrough comes from careful observation of Veneti sailing techniques. Their ships rely on leather sails and rigging far more sophisticated than Mediterranean standards. These allow precise control in Atlantic winds, but create a potential vulnerability that Roman engineers can exploit. Caesar orders the construction of special hooks mounted on long poles, designed to cut Veneti rigging and disable their ships. The climactic naval battle in Quiberon Bay becomes a masterpiece of Roman adaptability. Caesar positions his fleet to take advantage of wind conditions that favor Roman tactical flexibility over Veneti size and strength. When the wind dies, Veneti ships become helpless, their sails useless and their oars insufficient to move such massive vessels. Roman galleys swarm around them like wolves around trapped prey. The destruction of the Veneti fleet has consequences far beyond military victory. With their ships destroyed and their coastal fortresses isolated, an entire maritime civilization collapses in a single campaign season. Caesar doesn't just defeat the Veneti, he eliminates their ability to exist as an independent people. Their survivors are sold into slavery, their settlements destroyed, their trade networks redistributed to Roman allies. But the Veneti campaign's greatest significance lies in its demonstration of Roman adaptability. Caesar has proven that Roman military science can be applied to any environment, against any enemy, using any necessary techniques. The systematic destruction of an entire civilization through careful analysis of its vulnerabilities becomes the template for what will eventually happen to all of Celtic Gaul. Chapter 7. Across the Rhine, the year 55 BCE finds Caesar facing a crisis of credibility that threatens his entire Gallic strategy. Germanic tribes, emboldened by reports of Roman difficulties with the Belgi and Veneti, have begun crossing the Rhine in increasing numbers. Worse still, some Gallic tribes are secretly negotiating with Germanic leaders, exploring alternatives to Roman domination. Caesar recognizes that decisive action is needed to maintain the fear and respect that make his limited forces effective across such vast territories. The immediate trigger comes when the Usipetes and Tencteri, Germanic tribes fleeing Suebi pressure, cross the Rhine with 430,000 people seeking new homes in Gaul. These aren't raiders or temporary invaders. They are massive migration that could permanently alter the ethnic and political balance of the region. Caesar understands that allowing Germanic settlement in Gaul would fatally undermine Roman authority and encourage further challenges to his rule. But Caesar's response goes far beyond simply repelling this particular incursion. He conceives a demonstration of Roman power so audacious it will permanently establish Roman supremacy in Germanic minds. He will cross the Rhine himself, carry Roman eagles into the mysterious Germanic heartland, and prove that no geographical barrier can contain Roman ambition when properly applied. The Rhine represents far more than a river. It is a psychological barrier that has separated the Roman and Germanic worlds for generations. No Roman army has ever crossed in force, and Germanic tribes consider it their ultimate defense against southern expansion. By violating this ancient boundary, Caesar aims to shatter Germanic confidence while demonstrating to his Gallic subjects that Roman power knows no limits. The engineering challenge appears insurmountable. The Rhine runs deep and swift, far too dangerous for conventional river crossings. Germanic tribes control both banks, ready to slaughter any Romans caught vulnerable in mid-crossing. Building boats would take too long and provide too many opportunities for enemy interference. Caesar needs a solution that's both rapid and shocking in its audacity. Caesar's answer becomes one of history's most famous engineering achievements. In just 10 days, Roman legionaries construct a massive wooden bridge across the Rhine, a feat of military engineering that amazes even Caesar's own soldiers. The bridge spans 400 feet of treacherous water, built with such skill and speed that Germanic observers can hardly believe their eyes. The bridge's construction demonstrates every element of the secret weapon Caesar is perfecting. Roman engineering creates possibilities that enemies cannot imagine or counter. Roman discipline allows complex projects to be completed under extreme pressure. Roman logistics provide materials and expertise exactly when and where needed. Most importantly, the psychological impact of the impossible made routine terrifies opponents into submission. When Roman legions cross into Germania, they enter a world of dark forests and hostile tribes that has never known foreign conquest. But Caesar's campaign isn't designed for permanent occupation. It is a calculated demonstration of power meant to establish psychological dominance. Roman soldiers burn Germanic villages, destroy sacred groves, and slaughter resistance fighters with methodical efficiency. The Germanic response reveals exactly why Caesar undertook this risky operation. Faced with Roman penetration of their homeland, Germanic tribes abandon their Gallic alliances and retreat deeper into their forests. The Suebi, most powerful of all Germanic peoples, actually evacuate their border territories rather than face Roman legions in open battle. Caesar's brief campaign achieves more than years of diplomacy could accomplish. After 18 days of systematic devastation, Caesar withdraws his legions and destroys the bridge behind them. This isn't retreat, it's a calculated message that Roman power can strike anywhere, anytime, but chooses its own terms of engagement. The destroyed bridge becomes a symbol of Roman technological superiority and strategic confidence. The Rhine crossing's psychological impact reverberates throughout the entire region. Gallic tribes witness Roman legions casually violating what they considered an impermeable barrier. Germanic peoples learn that their homeland offers no sanctuary from Roman vengeance. Most importantly, Caesar demonstrates that Roman military science can overcome any obstacle when applied with sufficient intelligence and determination. This brief campaign perfects the psychological warfare that will reach its ultimate expression at Alesia. Caesar understands that destroying enemy confidence is often more valuable than destroying enemy armies. The secret weapon he is developing isn't just engineering or tactics. It's the systematic application of fear as an instrument of policy. Chapter 8. The British expedition, the summer of 55 BCE, brings Caesar to the shores of the English Channel, gazing across waters that represent the very edge of the known world. Britain looms through the mist like a mythical realm, inhabited by painted warriors and mysterious druids who practice human sacrifice in sacred groves. No Roman has ever set foot on these legendary shores, yet Caesar prepares to lead his legions across the ocean river itself, the ultimate demonstration of Roman audacity. Caesar's motives for invading Britain combine practical politics with personal ambition. British tribes have been sending aid to their Gallic cousins, providing both warriors and refuge for resistance leaders. More importantly, Britain's reputation for wealth in gold, silver, and pearls makes it an irresistible target for a general facing enormous debts and political pressures. But beyond these considerations lies Caesar as recognition that conquering the mythical island would establish his reputation as the greatest explorer-conqueror in Roman history. The logistical challenges seem impossible. Caesar must transport 2 legions across 20 miles of treacherous water using hastily constructed vessels, then establish a beachhead on hostile shores without any secure base or supply line. The channel's tides and currents are unlike anything Roman sailors have encountered, while British knowledge of local conditions gives them every advantage. Caesar's first attempts at intelligence gathering reveal just how mysterious Britain remains to Mediterranean minds. Gallic merchants who trade with the island provide contradictory information about British strength, customs, and geography. Roman attempts to interrogate British visitors to Gaul yield little useful intelligence, as these traders carefully guard secrets about their homeland's defenses and resources. But Caesar recognizes that uncertainty itself can become a weapon. If Romans don't know what to expect in Britain, then Britons equally don't know what Roman capabilities might accomplish on their shores. Caesar as secret weapon, the systematic application of Roman military science to impossible challenges, thrives precisely in situations where conventional thinking declares success impossible. The Channel crossing becomes another masterpiece of Roman engineering, adapted to unprecedented conditions. Caesar's shipwrights designed special transports with shallow drafts for beach landings and high sides for channel conditions. Roman cavalry horses are trained for sea voyages, while legionaries practice amphibious assault techniques on Gallic beaches. Every detail receives careful attention, from waterproofing equipment to coordinating tidal schedules. The actual invasion demonstrates both Roman capabilities and British responses. British warriors, magnificent in their war chariots and battle paint, fight with desperate courage to prevent Roman establishment of a beachhead. Their chariots provide mobility that Roman formations struggle to counter, while their intimate knowledge of local terrain gives them significant tactical advantages. Yet Roman discipline and adaptability prove decisive. Legionaries adapt their techniques to beach combat. Centurions coordinate complex maneuvers under fire, and Roman engineering quickly establishes defensive positions that British attacks cannot penetrate. Most importantly, Caesar, as personal leadership, charging into the surf beside his soldiers, demonstrates the commitment that makes Roman forces so formidable. The British campaign's brevity masks its strategic significance. Caesar spends only 3 weeks on British soil, achieving limited territorial gains before autumn storms force his return to Gaul. But those 3 weeks accomplish everything Caesar intended. demonstrating that Roman power recognizes no boundaries and that even the ocean river cannot protect enemies of Rome. The expedition's psychological impact proves far more valuable than any military conquest. Throughout Gaul, tribal leaders witness Roman legions casually crossing the edge of the world and returning with British hostages and tribute. Germanic tribes hear reports of Roman eagles planted on shores they considered mythical. Most importantly, Caesar's soldiers gain unshakable confidence in their commander's ability to achieve the impossible. Caesar returns to Britain the following year with a much larger force, demonstrating that his first expedition was merely reconnaissance for more serious conquest. Though British resistance prevents permanent occupation, the second campaign establishes Roman influence over British politics and secures tribute from several tribes. More importantly, it perfects the techniques of amphibious assault that showcase Roman adaptability. The British expeditions complete Caesar's education in applying Roman military science to any environment and any challenge. He has now fought in forests and on rivers, in mountains and on oceans, against Germanic tribes and Celtic kingdoms and British warriors. Each campaign has refined his understanding of how Roman advantages can be leveraged against specific enemy weaknesses. The secret weapon that will ultimately destroy Celtic resistance at Alesia incorporates lessons learned from every one of these diverse experiences. Chapter 9. The Great Revolt begins winter 53 to 52 BCE, brings ominous news to Caesar's headquarters. Across Gaul, Druids whisper of ancient prophecies and sacred obligations. Tribal councils meet in secret, their deliberations hidden from Roman informants who have previously provided reliable intelligence. Most disturbing of all, reports emerge of a young Arverni nobleman whose charismatic speeches are uniting tribes that have never cooperated before. His name is Vercingetorix, and he represents everything Caesar fears most: unified Celtic resistance under brilliant leadership. Vercingetorix embodies the best of Celtic civilization while understanding the nature of Roman power better than any previous resistance leader. Born into the Arverni nobility, educated in rhetoric and strategy, he has observed Roman methods during their years of conquest and identified the weaknesses that Celtic disunity has prevented previous leaders from exploiting. Unlike Ambiorix or other tribal kings, Vercingetorix thinks beyond immediate tactical concerns to envision a comprehensive strategy for Celtic liberation. The spark that ignites the Great Revolt comes from Roman administrative arrogance. Marcus Crassus, Caesar's partner in the First Triumvirate, has been killed fighting the Parthians, disrupting the political balance that protected Caesar's position. Meanwhile, Roman tax collectors and administrators in Gaul have grown increasingly oppressive, treating conquered territories as personal resources rather than political conquests requiring careful management. The immediate trigger occurs at Suebi, where Roman merchants and settlers are massacred by the Carnutes in a carefully coordinated surprise attack. But this isn't random violence. It is the opening move in a rebellion years in the planning. Within days, news of the massacre spreads throughout Gaul using the mysterious communication network that connects druidical centers across the continent. The signal has been given for general uprising. Vercingetorix's proclamation of rebellion demonstrates political sophistication that previous Celtic leaders have lacked. He doesn't just call for war against Rome. He articulates a vision of unified Gaul that transcends traditional tribal boundaries. His message resonates because it addresses the fundamental question that has haunted Celtic resistance. How can divided tribes defeat unified Roman power? The young Arverni leader's first challenge comes from within his own tribe, where pro-Roman nobles attempt to prevent his assumption of power. This internal struggle becomes a microcosm of the larger conflict between Celtic independence and Roman domination. Vercingetorix's victory over internal opposition demonstrates both his political skills and the depth of anti-Roman sentiment among ordinary Gauls. But Vercingetorix understands that courage and unity alone cannot defeat Roman military superiority. His strategic innovation lies in refusing to fight the kind of battles that have destroyed previous Celtic armies. Instead of meeting Roman legions in open combat, where discipline and engineering provide decisive advantages, he adopts a strategy of harassment, retreat, and systematic destruction of resources that Roman forces need to survive. This scorched earth strategy represents a revolutionary approach to Celtic warfare. Traditional Celtic honor codes emphasize individual courage and the defense of tribal territories. But Vercingetorix convinces his followers to abandon both concepts in favor of strategic effectiveness. Tribes burn their own settlements rather than let Romans use them, retreat from ancestral lands rather than fight hopeless battles, and coordinate their efforts across vast distances rather than pursue individual glory. The psychological impact of unified rebellion shocks Roman observers who have grown accustomed to dealing with isolated tribal resistance. Suddenly, Caesar's scattered garrisons find themselves surrounded by hostile populations. His supply lines threatened by coordinated attacks, his diplomatic alliances undermined by the appeal of Celtic unity. The carefully constructed Roman position in Gaul begins crumbling as tribes throughout the region abandon their Roman alliances. Caesar, as initial response, demonstrates both his military genius and his recognition that this rebellion poses an existential threat to Roman rule in Gaul. Rather than attempting to suppress the uprising through purely military means, he begins developing the comprehensive strategy that will eventually culminate at Alesia. This isn't just another campaign. It has a struggle for the very survival of Roman civilization in Gaul. Vercingetorix's emergence forces Caesar to evolve his secret weapon into its final form. Previous enemies could be defeated through superior tactics, engineering, or political manipulation. But Vercingetorix combines Celtic courage with Roman-style strategic thinking, creating an opponent who can only be destroyed through the systematic application of every advantage Roman civilization possesses. The stage is set for the final confrontation between two civilizations, two military systems, and two incompatible visions of Gaul's future. Chapter 10. The Convergence at Gergovia. Spring 52 BCE finds Caesar facing the greatest crisis of his Gallic command. Vercingetorix has successfully united dozens of tribes under Arverni leadership, creating the largest Celtic army ever assembled. More dangerously, the rebel leader has learned from previous Celtic defeats, adopting strategies that neutralize traditional Roman advantages while exploiting Roman weaknesses that Caesar has managed to conceal until now. The campaign for Gergovia becomes the supreme test of both commanders' abilities. Vercingetorix has withdrawn to his tribal capital, a massive hilltop fortress that commands the approaches to central Gaul. From the seemingly impregnable position, he coordinates rebellion throughout the region while demonstrating that Celtic forces can successfully resist Roman siege techniques when properly organized and led. Caesar's approach to Gergovia reveals both his growing desperation and his tactical brilliance. Unable to assault the fortress directly, he attempts to isolate it through construction of elaborate siege works that showcase Roman engineering at its most sophisticated. But Vercingetorix counters every Roman move with innovations of his own, proving that Celtic intelligence can match Roman technology when given proper leadership. The siege becomes a duel between two military geniuses, each trying to force the other into a decisive mistake. Caesar employs every technique that has brought him victory in previous campaigns: engineering, psychology, political manipulation, and pure tactical skill. But Vercingetorix refuses to be drawn into the kind of battle that has destroyed previous Celtic armies, maintaining strict discipline among his forces while steadily weakening Roman morale. Caesar's first major setback comes when his attempt to storm Gergovia results in significant Roman casualties without achieving any strategic gains. This isn't just a tactical defeat. It is a devastating blow to Roman prestige that encouraged rebellion throughout Gaul. For the first time in the Gallic Wars, Caesar's legions have been decisively repulsed by Celtic defenders fighting from prepared positions. But the real crisis emerges when Caesar's Gallic allies begin abandoning their Roman alliance. The Aedui, Rome's most reliable supporters in central Gaul, suddenly declare for Vercingetorix, bringing thousands of additional warriors to the Celtic cause. This political reversal threatens to isolate Caesar's forces completely, cutting them off from their supply bases and surrounding them with hostile populations. Vercingetorix's moment of triumph at Gergovia demonstrates everything he has learned about Roman weaknesses. By refusing to pursue Caesar's retreating forces, he avoids the trap that has destroyed previous Celtic victories. Instead, he uses his success to strengthen the rebellion's political foundations, bringing additional tribes into his coalition while demonstrating that Roman invincibility is a myth. Caesar's retreat from Gergovia appears to confirm Celtic resurgence, but it actually represents the beginning of his ultimate strategy. Unable to defeat Vercingetorix through conventional siege techniques, Caesar begins developing the approach that will eventually trap the Celtic leader at Alesia. This isn't just tactical adaptation, it's the final evolution of Caesar's secret weapon. The key insight comes from analyzing why Gergovia proved impregnable. Vercingetorix's position combined natural strength with abundant supplies and secure communications with the rest of Gaul. Caesar realizes that defeating such an enemy requires not just military pressure, but complete isolation from all sources of support. The systematic application of Roman engineering must create not just siege works, but a comprehensive system for controlling an entire region. Caesar's withdrawal from Gergovia sets the stage for the final confrontation by forcing Vercingetorix to choose between preserving his unified army and protecting individual tribal territories. The Celtic leader's decision to concentrate his forces at Alesia represents both his greatest strategic success and his fatal error. He achieves the unified resistance that has eluded Celtic leaders for generations, but he also provides Caesar with the target needed for the ultimate demonstration of Roman military science. The failure at Gergovia teaches Caesar that traditional siege warfare cannot defeat Vercingetorix's innovations. But it also reveals the Celtic leader's strategic limitations, his dependence on maintaining tribal unity, and his inability to sustain prolonged campaigns without secure supply sources. These weaknesses will become the foundation for the secret weapon that ultimately destroys Celtic independence at Alesia. Chapter 11. The Trap in Alesia, the summer of 52 BCE, brings the decisive moment that will determine the fate of Celtic civilization. Vercingetorix, flushed with success from his victory at Gergovia, makes the fateful decision to concentrate his massive army at Alesia, a hilltop fortress in Mandubii territory that appears to offer the perfect position for the final confrontation with Roman power. But Caesar sees in this decision the opportunity he's been waiting for, the chance to deploy his secret weapon in its ultimate form. Alesia rises from the Burgundian countryside like a natural citadel, its steep slopes and commanding position making direct assault virtually impossible. The Alpinum crowns a flat-topped hill protected by deep valleys on three sides, with the only practical approach heavily fortified by generations of Celtic engineers. Vercingetorix has chosen this position precisely because it neutralizes Roman advantages in open battle while providing secure refuge for the largest Celtic army ever assembled. But Caesar recognizes that Alesia's apparent strengths conceal fatal weaknesses. The position that makes the fortress impregnable also makes it impossible to abandon. More critically, Vercingetorix's unified army, nearly 80,000 warriors plus civilian refugees, requires enormous of food and water that must come from outside the fortress. Caesar's secret weapon will transform these logistical requirements into instruments of destruction. The Roman approach to Alesia demonstrates the full evolution of Caesar's military thinking. Instead of attempting direct assault or conventional siege, He orders construction of the most ambitious engineering project in military history, a double line of fortifications that will simultaneously contain the Celtic army and protect Roman forces from external attack. This isn't just siegecraft. It is the systematic application of Roman engineering to create an entire battlefield. The inner line of fortifications, called the circumvallation, stretches for 11 miles around Alesia's base, creating an impenetrable barrier between the Celtic army and the outside world. Roman legionaries work with mechanical precision, digging ditches 20 feet wide and 15 feet deep, raising ramparts crowned with sharpened stakes, installing hidden traps designed to cripple attacking warriors. Every element serves multiple purposes: obstacle, weapon, and psychological pressure. But Caesar's true genius emerges in his decision to construct a second line of fortifications facing outward. The contravallation, stretching for 13 miles, protects Roman forces from the relief army that Vercingetorix has summoned from throughout Gaul. This outer line transforms Caesar's siege into something unprecedented: a defensive battle where Roman forces fight from prepared positions against enemies attacking from both directions. The construction of these massive fortifications reveals the secret weapon that has been developing throughout Caesar's entire Gallic campaign. Roman military engineering doesn't just support combat operations, it becomes combat itself, reshaping entire battlefields to multiply Roman advantages while negating enemy strengths. The systematic application of Roman organization, discipline, and technical expertise creates possibilities that no previous military system has imagined. Vercingetorix's initial confidence slowly transforms into growing desperation as he realizes the nature of Caesar's trap. The Celtic army that seems so formidable when concentrated at Alesia becomes a liability when confined behind Roman fortifications. Food supplies dwindle rapidly, while attempts to break out result in horrific casualties against prepared Roman positions. The psychological pressure proves even more devastating than physical hardship. Celtic warriors, accustomed to mobility and offensive action, find themselves trapped like animals in a cage of Roman construction. Their traditional advantages in individual combat mean nothing against systematic fortifications designed to channel attacks into predetermined killing zones. Worse still, they can only watch helplessly as Roman engineers methodically tighten the noose around their position. Caesar's deployment of his secret weapon at Alesia represents the culmination of 8 years of military innovation in Gaul. Every technique perfected in previous campaigns, engineering, psychology, political manipulation, and tactical flexibility combines into a comprehensive system for destroying not just armies, but entire civilizations. The double fortifications around Alesia become both symbol and instrument of Roman superiority over Celtic independence. The siege enters its final phase when Vercingetorix's relief army arrives, creating the unprecedented situation of Roman forces fighting simultaneously against enemies inside and outside their fortifications. But this apparent disadvantage actually represents Caesar's ultimate triumph. His secret weapon has created conditions where Celtic numerical superiority becomes meaningless, where traditional Celtic courage cannot achieve victory, and where Vercingetorix's strategic brilliance finds no outlet for effective action. Conclusion. The weapon revealed. As autumn winds sweep across the Alesian plateau, the secret weapon that destroyed Celtic civilization finally stands revealed in all its terrible perfection. It wasn't a siege engine or a new formation or even a technological innovation in the conventional sense. Caesar's ultimate weapon was something far more devastating: the systematic transformation of warfare itself into a comprehensive science of conquest that left no room for traditional Celtic responses. The double fortifications around Alesia represent the culmination of this revolutionary approach to military power. Roman engineering hasn't just supported combat, it has become combat, creating an entire artificial battlefield where every advantage favors Roman discipline over Celtic courage. The circumvallation and contravallation do not merely contain and protect. They demonstrate that Roman organizational capabilities can overcome any natural or human obstacle when properly applied. But the true genius of Caesar's secret weapon lies in its psychological dimensions. The systematic application of Roman military science doesn't just defeat armies. It destroys the very foundation of enemy confidence and resistance. Celtic warriors, watching Roman legionaries methodically construct their doom, experience something far worse than military defeat. They witnessed the futility of their entire way of life against Roman organizational superiority. Vercingetorix. That surrender marks not just the end of Celtic independence, but the death of an entire civilization as military tradition. The proud warriors who once charged Romans at Bibracte and the Sabis River can only watch helplessly as their children starve behind walls of Roman construction. Their gods, their heroes, their ancient codes of honor, all prove worthless against an enemy that fights with engineering and logistics rather than individual courage. The secret weapon Caesar perfected in Gaul would reshape warfare for centuries to come. Future Roman generals would employ the same systematic approach to conquest, using engineering and organization to create artificial advantages that no enemy could counter through traditional military virtues alone. The lesson of Alesia, that superior organization defeats superior courage when properly applied, would echo through history wherever Roman eagles cast their shadows. Yet perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Caesar's secret weapon was its adaptability. The same systematic approach that destroyed Celtic Gaul would prove equally effective against Germanic tribes, British kingdoms, and Parthian empires. Roman military science had evolved beyond mere tactics into a comprehensive system for analyzing, understanding, and ultimately destroying any form of resistance to Roman power. The Celtic tribes never recovered from their defeat at Alesia. Those who survived Roman vengeance found themselves absorbed into a civilization that had no place for their traditions, their language, or their identity. Within generations, the proud warriors who had once dominated Western Europe existed only as Romanized shadows of their former selves. Their ancient culture preserved only in Roman histories written by their conquerors. Caesar as secret weapon, the systematic application of Roman organizational capabilities to create insurmountable artificial advantages, represents one of history's most decisive military innovations. It didn't just win battles or campaigns or even wars. It destroyed entire ways of life, replacing them with Roman alternatives that proved impossible to resist or replace. The terrifying efficiency of this approach would make Rome master of the known world and ensure that Caesar's name would be remembered long after his Celtic enemies were forgotten. In the end, the secret weapon that destroyed the Celtic tribes was nothing more and nothing less than the organized application of Roman intelligence to the problem of conquest. But in Caesar's hands, this simple concept became an instrument of destruction so complete that it eliminated not just Celtic independence, but Celtic civilization itself, leaving only ruins and memories where once proud peoples had ruled their ancient lands. In the end, the secret weapon that destroyed the Celtic tribes was nothing more and nothing less than the organized application of Roman intelligence to the problem of conquest. But in Caesar's hands, this simple concept became an instrument of destruction so complete that it eliminated not just Celtic independence, but Celtic civilization itself, leaving only ruins and memories where once proud peoples had ruled their ancient lands. Chapter 12. The Engineering of Annihilation. The morning after Vercingetorix's surrender, Roman soldiers walked the perimeter of their great fortifications around Alesia, marveling at what their own hands have built. 11 miles of inner walls, 13 miles of outer defenses, countless ditches, traps, and obstacles that transformed a hilltop siege into the most complex military engineering project in human history. But these aren't merely fortifications. They're monuments to a revolutionary approach to warfare that has just proven its devastating effectiveness against an entire civilization. The circumvallation that trapped 80,000 Celtic warriors represents far more than impressive engineering. Every ditch, every rampart, every sharpened stake demonstrates the systematic application of Roman analytical thinking to the problem of battlefield control. Roman engineers didn't simply build walls. They created a comprehensive system that eliminated every possible Celtic response while multiplying every Roman advantage. Consider the mathematical precision underlying these fortifications. Roman surveyors calculated optimal angles for rampart slopes that would deflect Celtic missiles while providing perfect platforms for Roman artillery. Roman engineers designed ditch profiles that would break Celtic cavalry charges while creating killing zones where Roman infantry could slaughter trapped attackers. Roman logisticians coordinated material supplies that allowed continuous construction despite constant Celtic harassment. Each element serves multiple purposes that demonstrate Roman systematic thinking applied to comprehensive warfare. The outer ditches don't merely slow Celtic attacks. They channel attackers into predetermined routes where Roman weapons achieve maximum effectiveness. The ramparts don't simply provide defensive positions. They create elevated platforms that give Roman archers and artillery clear fields of fire across carefully planned killing zones. The hidden traps scattered throughout the approach routes reveal Roman psychological warfare at its most sophisticated. These aren't random obstacles, but systematically placed instruments of terror designed to break Celtic morale before battle even begins. Celtic warriors advancing toward Roman positions never know when solid ground will give way beneath their feet, when hidden spikes will pierce their legs, when innocent-looking grass conceals deadly pits. But the true genius of Roman engineering lies not in individual innovations, but in systematic integration of every element into a comprehensive defensive system. Roman military engineers don't build fortifications. They create artificial environments that make enemy defeat inevitable, regardless of courage, determination, or tactical skill. The speed of Roman construction astounds even experienced observers who have witnessed Roman engineering capabilities in previous campaigns. Within weeks, the landscape around Alesia transforms from open countryside into a labyrinth of death designed with mathematical precision. Roman work crews operating carefully coordinated shifts that continue around the clock. Their labor organized with the same discipline that characterizes legionary combat formations. Roman logistics provide materials and expertise exactly when and where needed, demonstrating supply capabilities that no Celtic tribe can match. Timber arrives from predetermined sources. Iron tools appear in sufficient quantities to equip thousands of workers, while Roman engineers coordinate complex construction projects under constant pressure from Celtic attempts to disrupt the work. The psychological impact of Roman construction proves as devastating as its physical effectiveness. Celtic warriors, watching Roman engineers methodically build their tomb, experience something far worse than simple fear. They witness the systematic application of human intelligence to create their destruction. Every day brings new obstacles, new dangers, new demonstrations that Roman capabilities exceed anything Celtic imagination can conceive. Roman engineering represents the visible manifestation of Caesar's secret weapon, the systematic transformation of warfare from individual combat to comprehensive science. The fortifications around Alesia don't merely support Roman military operations. They become military operations themselves, reshaping the entire battlefield to ensure Roman victory before the first sword is drawn. Future Roman generals will study the Alesian fortifications as the ultimate example of engineering applied to systematic conquest. The principles demonstrated here, comprehensive analysis, systematic construction, and total battlefield control, become standard Roman doctrine that influences military engineering for centuries. Hadrian's Wall, the Rhine fortifications, and countless other Roman defensive systems all trace their origins to innovations perfected during the siege of Alesia. But the lessons extend beyond mere engineering to encompass the entire Roman approach to systematic warfare. The fortifications represent physical manifestation of intellectual superiority applied to the problem of total conquest. Roman success stems not from superior materials or innovative techniques, but from comprehensive analysis that accounts for every variable and plans for every contingency. Celtic observers witnessing Roman construction capabilities understand intuitively that they face something unprecedented in their experience. This isn't merely superior technology, but an entirely different approach to problem solving that treats warfare as a science rather than an art. Roman engineers don't improvise solutions. They apply systematic methodologies that guarantee predetermined results. The systematic nature of Roman engineering eliminates the possibility of Celtic tactical innovation or strategic adaptation. Celtic leaders cannot counter Roman methods because they lack the analytical framework necessary to understand how Roman systems function. Their traditional responses, courage, determination, and tactical improvisation prove meaningless against systematic preparation that anticipates and neutralizes every possible Celtic action. Roman engineering at Alesia demonstrates that Caesar's secret weapon transcends any specific technique or technology to encompass a comprehensive transformation of warfare itself. The systematic application of Roman intelligence to battlefield control creates possibilities that previous military systems never imagined, proving that organized thinking can overcome any obstacle when properly applied. The double fortifications around Alesia become the ultimate expression of this revolutionary approach, demonstrating that Roman military science can create artificial conditions that make enemy defeat inevitable regardless of circumstances. The secret weapon that destroys Celtic civilization isn't any single innovation, but the systematic application of Roman organizational principles to create comprehensive superiority that no traditional enemy can overcome. Behind the gleaming armor of Caesar's legions and the mathematical precision of Roman engineering lies the true foundation of imperial conquest, a logistical system so sophisticated and comprehensive that it enables Roman forces to operate at distances and for durations that would cripple any traditional army. The systematic supply networks that sustain Roman campaigns in Gaul represent perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of Caesar's secret weapon, transforming warfare from seasonal raiding into permanent occupation supported by organizational capabilities that no Celtic tribe can match or counter. Roman logistical superiority doesn't emerge accidentally, but results from systematic analysis of military requirements applied with the same precision that characterizes Roman engineering and tactics. Roman quartermasters calculate exactly how much food, equipment, and supplies each legion requires for specific operations, then develop supply networks capable of delivering these materials regardless of geographical obstacles or enemy interference. The scale of Roman logistical operations staggers even experienced military observers. A single Roman legion of 5,000 men requires approximately 2,000 pounds of grain daily, plus additional supplies of meat, vegetables, wine, and oil that sustain military effectiveness over extended campaigns. Multiplied across Caesar's 6 legions plus auxiliary forces, these requirements demand supply capabilities that exceed the resources of most contemporary kingdoms. Celtic armies, by contrast, depend on local foraging and tribal support systems that limit their operational range and campaign duration. Celtic warriors can achieve tactical brilliance and demonstrate extraordinary courage, but they cannot sustain prolonged operations without secure supply sources that Roman systematic warfare deliberately targets for destruction. This fundamental disparity in logistical capabilities ensures Roman strategic advantages that no amount of Celtic bravery can overcome. Roman road networks, constructed with the same mathematical precision that characterizes all Roman engineering, provide the infrastructure necessary for maintaining supply lines across vast distances. These aren't mere paths beaten by travelers, but carefully surveyed and constructed highways that enable rapid movement of men and materials under all weather conditions. Roman engineers built roads to specifications that ensure maximum efficiency for military transportation while providing permanent infrastructure that facilitates imperial administration. The systematic coordination of Roman supply operations demonstrates organizational capabilities that revolutionize military logistics throughout the ancient world. Roman commissary officers maintained detailed records of supply requirements, delivery schedules, and inventory levels that enable precise planning for complex campaigns. These administrative systems ensure that Roman forces receive necessary supplies when and where needed, eliminating the uncertainty that cripples less organized armies. Roman naval logistics complement overland supply systems by providing alternative transportation routes that enemy forces cannot easily interrupt. Roman fleets operating along Gallic rivers and Atlantic coasts deliver supplies directly to Roman forces while bypassing dangerous overland routes that Celtic forces might ambush. This flexibility in supply methods gives Roman commanders strategic options that no purely land-based enemy can counter effectively. The systematic nature of Roman logistical planning enables Caesar to maintain multiple campaigns simultaneously while ensuring adequate supply for each operation. Roman organizational capabilities allow coordination of complex supply networks that support forces operating hundreds of miles apart, providing strategic flexibility that enables rapid concentration of force when decisive battles require maximum Roman strength. Roman standardization of equipment and supplies simplifies logistical requirements while ensuring compatibility across different units and campaigns. Roman soldiers use identical weapons, armor, and tools manufactured to precise specifications that enable mass production and efficient distribution. This standardization eliminates the complexity that would otherwise make large-scale logistics impossible to manage effectively. Celtic forces lack equivalent organizational capabilities, forcing them to depend on improvised supply systems that cannot sustain prolonged resistance against Roman systematic pressure. Celtic craftsmen produce weapons and equipment to individual specifications that prevent mass production, while Celtic political fragmentation eliminates the coordination necessary for effective supply networks across tribal boundaries. Roman military engineering serves dual purposes by providing both tactical advantages and logistical infrastructure that supports extended operations. Roman camps, constructed according to standardized plans wherever Roman forces operate, provide secure bases for supply operations while demonstrating Roman organizational capabilities to Celtic observers. These temporary fortifications become permanent infrastructure that facilitates continued Roman presence in conquered territories. The systematic efficiency of Roman logistics enables Caesar to achieve strategic surprise through rapid concentration of forces that appear impossible given the distances involved. Roman supply networks allow legion movement across hundreds of miles without loss of combat effectiveness, providing strategic mobility that enables Roman forces to appear wherever Celtic resistance requires immediate suppression. Roman logistics demonstrate the economic foundations of imperial expansion, as systematic taxation and tribute collection provide the wealth necessary to sustain military operations that would bankrupt less organized systems. Roman fiscal administration ensures steady revenue streams that support permanent military establishments, rather than temporary expeditions that must pay for themselves through immediate plunder. The integration of Roman logistics with intelligence gathering creates comprehensive information networks that support both supply operations and strategic planning. Roman merchants and administrators operating throughout Gaul provide continuous intelligence about Celtic capabilities, intentions, and weaknesses, while facilitating the commercial relationships that make Roman supply networks possible. Roman veterinary services and medical care demonstrate systematic attention to details that less organized armies ignore, ensuring that Roman forces maintain combat effectiveness throughout extended campaigns. Roman attention to soldier health and equipment maintenance provides crucial advantages in prolonged operations where small inefficiencies accumulate into strategic disadvantages. The systematic training of Roman logistical personnel ensures consistent performance regardless of campaign requirements or geographical challenges. Roman supply officers receive standardized education that enables effective coordination across different commands, while Roman engineering corps maintain capabilities necessary for constructing supply infrastructure under combat conditions. Roman logistical capabilities enable the construction and maintenance of siege works at Alesia that would be impossible without systematic supply networks, providing materials, tools, and food for thousands of workers operating under constant pressure. The double fortifications that trap Celtic forces represent not just engineering achievement but logistical triumph that demonstrates Roman organizational superiority over traditional military systems. The systematic nature of Roman logistics ensures that these capabilities improve continuously through experience gained in successive campaigns. Roman organizational methods tested in Gaul provide the foundation for imperial expansion that eventually encompasses territories from Britain to Mesopotamia, demonstrating the scalability of systematic approaches to military supply and administration. Roman logistical supremacy at Alesia represents the culmination of systematic development that transforms warfare from episodic raiding into permanent occupation supported by comprehensive organizational capabilities. The secret weapon that destroys Celtic independence relies as much on Roman supply efficiency as Roman tactical innovation, proving that superior organization provides decisive advantages that no amount of individual courage can overcome. In the years following Vercingetorix's dramatic surrender at Alesia, as Roman administrators established permanent control over territories won through systematic warfare, the true magnitude of Caesar's achievement becomes apparent. This isn't merely another military conquest added to Rome's growing list of victories. It represents the complete elimination of an entire civilization whose influence once stretched from Ireland to the Black Sea. The systematic application of Caesar's secret weapon has accomplished something unprecedented in human history: the total cultural annihilation of a people through organized intelligence applied to comprehensive destruction. Celtic civilization, which flourished for over a millennium across the European continent, disappears with shocking speed and thoroughness. Within a generation of Alesia's fall, Celtic languages survive only in the most remote regions where Roman influence remains limited. Celtic religious practices vanish as Roman authorities systematically eliminate druidical centers and replace Celtic sacred sites with Roman temples. Celtic legal traditions yield to Roman law codes, while Celtic artistic styles merge with Roman aesthetics until distinct Celtic identity becomes impossible to maintain. The systematic nature of this cultural destruction reveals the true scope of Caesar's revolutionary approach to conquest. Previous military victories had typically resulted in political subjugation, while allowing conquered peoples to maintain their cultural identities and traditional practices. Roman conquest of Celtic Gaul eliminates not just political independence, but the very possibility of cultural survival outside Roman frameworks. Roman census records from the decades following conquest document the demographic catastrophe that accompanies cultural annihilation. Gallic population, estimated at over 3 million before Caesar's campaigns, drops by at least 1/3 through warfare, slavery, and forced migration. Entire tribal groups simply disappear from historical records, their members either dead, enslaved, or absorbed into Roman colonial settlements that erase their ethnic identities. The economic transformation of Gaul demonstrates Roman systematic approach to resource extraction and imperial integration. Celtic agricultural systems, based on subsistence farming and limited trade, undergo complete restructuring to serve Roman needs for grain, minerals, and manufactured goods. Roman taxation systems impose burdens that force fundamental changes in Celtic economic behavior, while Roman currency gradually replaces Celtic monetary systems throughout the region. Celtic metalworking, once renowned throughout the ancient world for its artistic excellence and technical innovation, yields to Roman mass production techniques that prioritize efficiency over individual craftsmanship. Celtic smiths who once created unique masterpieces find themselves producing standardized Roman goods. Their traditional skills gradually lost as apprenticeship systems collapse under economic pressure. The urbanization of Gaul represents another systematic transformation that eliminates traditional Celtic ways of life. Celtic oppida, the hilltop fortresses that served as tribal centers for centuries, become either Roman colonies or abandoned ruins as populations relocate to Roman-planned cities in valley locations that serve Roman commercial and administrative needs rather than Celtic defensive requirements. These new Roman cities feature the standard amenities that demonstrate imperial civilization while systematically displacing Celtic cultural practices. Roman forums replace Celtic assembly areas. Roman law courts eliminate Celtic legal traditions. Roman schools teach Roman curriculum but ignores Celtic history and values. Celtic children growing up in these Roman environments lose connection to their ancestral culture while gaining access to opportunities that require Roman identity. The linguistic transformation of Gaul provides perhaps the clearest evidence of systematic cultural destruction. Latin gradually displaces Celtic languages not through formal prohibition, but through systematic advantages given to Latin speakers in legal, commercial, and administrative contexts. Celtic children who learn Latin gain access to educational and economic opportunities denied to those who speak only tribal languages, creating powerful incentives for voluntary abandonment of Celtic linguistic heritage. Within 2 generations, Celtic languages survive only in remote rural areas where Roman influence remains limited. Urban populations adopt Latin for practical reasons while retaining only fragments of Celtic vocabulary for private use. The oral traditions that preserved Celtic history, law, and religious knowledge gradually disappear as the languages that carried them lose speakers and cultural relevance. Roman educational systems replace Celtic traditional learning with imperial curricula that prepare young Gauls for participation in Roman civilization while systematically eliminating knowledge of Celtic heritage. Roman schools teach Latin literature, Roman law, Roman history, and Roman values while treating Celtic traditions as primitive superstitions unworthy of serious study. Celtic religious transformation demonstrates the spiritual component of systematic cultural destruction. Roman authorities don't simply prohibit Celtic worship, but systematically replace Celtic religious frameworks with Roman alternatives that serve imperial political purposes. Celtic gods undergo syncretism with Roman deities, their distinctive characteristics gradually absorbed into imperial religious systems that emphasize loyalty to Rome rather than tribal identity. The Druidical class, which preserved Celtic oral traditions and provided educational and legal leadership for Celtic society, faces systematic elimination through prohibition of their religious ceremonies, execution of prominent Druids, and replacement of Celtic education with Roman alternatives. Roman authorities recognize that Druids represent the intellectual foundation of Celtic resistance and target them for particularly thorough destruction. Celtic sacred groves, the spiritual centers where Druids conducted their mysteries and preserved their wisdom, become particular targets for Roman cultural warfare. These ancient sites, some of which served Celtic religious needs for centuries, suffer systematic destruction that eliminates both physical structures and spiritual significance. Roman soldiers cut down sacred oaks, destroy stone circles, and build Roman temples on sites where Celtic gods once received worship. The marriage customs, inheritance practices, and social hierarchies that structured Celtic society undergo systematic modification to conform with Roman legal requirements. Celtic women, who traditionally enjoyed considerable independence and legal rights, find their status reduced to match Roman patriarchal expectations. Celtic concepts of collective tribal ownership yield to Roman emphasis on individual property rights that facilitate imperial taxation and resource extraction. Roman military veterans settled on land grants throughout Gaul provide permanent garrisons that ensure continued imperial control while demonstrating Roman cultural superiority through their communities. These veteran colonies become centers of Romanization that spread imperial culture through example rather than coercion, showing Celtic populations the advantages of adopting Roman customs and abandoning traditional practices. The transformation occurs with such systematic thoroughness that within a century of Alesia's fall, Celtic Gaul exists only in historical memory and archaeological remains. The proud warriors who once challenged Roman eagles survive only as Romanized provincials whose ancestors' struggles seem as remote as ancient mythology. Their languages, laws, customs, and beliefs disappear so completely that later generations must rely on Roman sources to understand what Celtic civilization actually encompassed. Roman systematic cultural destruction proves so effective because it operates through comprehensive transformation rather than simple suppression. Roman authorities don't merely prohibit Celtic practices, they provide Roman alternatives that offer practical advantages while gradually eliminating the social context that make Celtic traditions relevant. The systematic nature of this approach ensures that cultural change becomes irreversible rather than temporary. The death of Celtic civilization demonstrates the ultimate effectiveness of Caesar's secret weapon when applied to comprehensive conquest. The systematic integration of military, political, economic, and cultural warfare creates conditions where entire civilizations can be eliminated through organized intelligence rather than simple force. The terrifying efficiency of this approach establishes precedents that influence Roman imperial policy for centuries, while providing templates for cultural destruction that extend far beyond ancient history. Caesar's achievement transcends military conquest to encompass permanent historical transformation that reshapes the entire future of Western European civilization. The systematic methods that destroy Celtic independence become standard Roman approaches to imperial expansion, ensuring that the secret weapon perfected in Gaul continues influencing human history long after its creator's assassination and the empire's eventual collapse. As the last autumn winds of 52 BCE sweep across the blood-soaked plateau of Alesia, carrying with them the ashes of Celtic civilization and the seeds of Roman dominance that will grow into the greatest empire in human history, the secret weapon that destroyed an entire people finally stands revealed in all its terrible and systematic perfection. It wasn't a siege engine forged in the workshops of Rome or a revolutionary military formation drilled on the Campus Martis. It wasn't even a technological innovation in the conventional sense of superior weapons, advanced metallurgy, or breakthrough tactics that previous military historians might recognize and catalog. Caesar's ultimate weapon was something far more devastating and far more enduring than any mere implement of war. It was the systematic transformation of warfare itself from an art of individual courage and tribal honor into a comprehensive science of total conquest that left no room for traditional responses, no hope for cultural survival, and no possibility of recovery from defeat. The secret that destroyed Celtic independence and eliminated Celtic civilization forever was the organized application of Roman intelligence to every aspect of human conflict, creating a methodology for conquest so complete and systematic that it made enemy defeat inevitable regardless of their courage, determination, or tactical innovation. The double fortifications around Alesia, those 11 miles of circumvallation and 13 miles of contravallation that trapped 80,000 Celtic warriors like insects preserved in amber represent the culmination of this revolutionary approach to warfare. But they are merely the final and most visible expression of principles that Caesar developed through 8 years of methodical experimentation in Gallic campaigns. Every battle fought, from the destruction of the Helvetii to the siege of rebellious Opida, every diplomatic maneuver from exploiting tribal rivalries to corrupting Celtic nobles, every engineering project from Rhine bridges to Atlantic naval innovations contributed to refining this ultimate instrument of domination. The engineering component that most observers remember and military historians celebrate represents only the most dramatic aspect of a comprehensive system that revolutionized human conflict. Roman military engineering under Caesar's direction doesn't merely support combat operations through better siege techniques or stronger fortifications. It becomes combat itself, systematically reshaping entire battlefields to create artificial advantages that multiply Roman strengths while completely negating enemy capabilities. The systematic application of Roman organizational principles transforms the very landscape into an instrument of conquest, proving that superior intelligence can overcome any natural or human obstacle when properly applied with sufficient determination and analytical precision. But the true genius of Caesar's secret weapon lies not in any single innovation, however impressive, but in its unprecedented integration of multiple warfare components that previous military systems had treated as separate and unrelated disciplines. Engineering brilliance combined seamlessly with psychological warfare to create not just physical barriers, but spiritual despair that breaks enemy will before battle begins. Political manipulation works alongside military pressure to eliminate enemy unity while systematically strengthening Roman advantages through exploitation of natural divisions and personal ambitions. Logistical coordination enables strategic flexibility that no traditional enemy can match, allowing Roman forces to operate at distances and for durations that would cripple less organized armies. Cultural warfare destroys the very foundations of resistance while offering seductive alternatives that encourage voluntary submission to Roman authority. The psychological dimensions of Caesar's weapon prove even more devastating than its impressive physical manifestations, eliminating the spiritual and cultural foundations that make sustained resistance possible. Celtic warriors, watching Roman engineers methodically construct their doom at Alesia, experienced something far worse than simple military defeat. They witnessed the systematic demonstration of their entire way of life's futility against Roman organizational superiority that seems to approach divine capability. Their gods prove powerless against Roman engineering precision. Their legendary courage becomes meaningless against Roman systematic organization. Their ancient traditions appear irrelevant to Roman calculations of mathematical conquest. This psychological destruction eliminates the belief systems that make resistance psychologically possible, proving far more effective than any amount of physical coercion or military intimidation. Celtic culture depends fundamentally on beliefs about divine favor, heroic destiny, and ultimate justice that Roman systematic warfare systematically refutes through empirical demonstration of superior capability. When these core beliefs collapse under the overwhelming weight of evidence that Roman methods achieve inevitable victory regardless of Celtic efforts, resistance becomes psychologically impossible rather than merely militarily difficult. The political manipulation that Caesar perfects throughout his 8-year Gallic campaign demonstrates how systematic intelligence can exploit enemy weaknesses while preventing effective cooperation between potential allies who might otherwise coordinate successful resistance. Caesar's diplomatic strategy reveals masterful understanding of Celtic political psychology, systematically using tribal rivalries, personal ambitions, economic interests, and cultural tensions to maintain divisions that make unified Celtic opposition impossible until Vercingetorix briefly achieves what Caesar has worked tirelessly to prevent. Even Vercingetorix's temporary success in unifying Celtic resistance ultimately serves Caesar's strategic purposes by concentrating enemy forces at a single location where Roman systematic warfare can destroy them decisively and permanently. The Celtic war chief as greatest political achievement, bringing together the largest Celtic army in recorded history under unified command, becomes his most fatal strategic error by providing Caesar with the concentrated target needed for the ultimate demonstration of systematic military science applied to total cultural destruction. The logistical component often receives insufficient attention from military historians focused on dramatic battles and impressive engineering, yet it proves absolutely crucial to Roman success throughout every phase of the Gallic campaigns. Roman ability to maintain complex supply lines across vast distances while operating in consistently hostile territory gives Caesar strategic flexibility that no Celtic leader can match or counter. Roman soldiers fight with unshakable confidence that their equipment will be maintained, their injuries properly treated, and their families adequately cared for regardless of campaign duration or geographical challenges. Celtic forces, by tragic contrast, depend entirely on local resources and traditional tribal support systems that Roman systematic warfare deliberately targets for destruction through coordinated economic and military pressure. By systematically eliminating Celtic logistical capabilities while maintaining and continuously improving Roman supply networks, Caesar creates operational conditions where prolonged resistance becomes impossible regardless of initial Celtic advantages in numbers, motivation, territorial knowledge, or fighting spirit. The systematic integration of these diverse elements, engineering innovation, psychological warfare, political manipulation, and logistical superiority, creates a weapon more devastating than any previous military innovation in human history because it addresses every aspect of warfare simultaneously rather than focusing on individual components. Previous military advances had concentrated on specific improvements: better weapons, superior formations, innovative siege techniques, or enhanced supply systems. Caesar's revolution lies in creating a comprehensive methodology that transforms warfare itself into a predictable science where victory becomes mathematically inevitable through proper application of systematic principles. This comprehensive approach explains completely why traditional Celtic responses prove so pathetically ineffective against Roman innovations despite Celtic superiority in individual courage, tactical improvisation, and knowledge of local terrain. Celtic military culture emphasizes personal honor, individual heroism, and spontaneous tactical adaptation, qualities that produce magnificent warriors in traditional combat, but cannot counter systematic preparation and comprehensive planning that accounts for every variable and prepares responses to every possible contingency. Celtic leaders make crucial decisions based on immediate circumstances and traditional precedents that have served their ancestors for generations, while Roman commanders follow analytical processes that systematically evaluate every aspect of complex situations and develop comprehensive solutions that address all relevant factors simultaneously. This fundamental difference in decision-making methodology ensures Roman victory regardless of specific tactical or strategic circumstances. The speed with which Roman methods achieve decisive and permanent results demonstrates their revolutionary effectiveness compared to traditional conquest patterns that have characterized warfare throughout human history. Previous conquests had typically required generations to complete, with conquered peoples gradually absorbed into imperial systems through cultural accommodation, political compromise, and economic integration that preserved significant elements of traditional identity. Caesar's systematic warfare eliminates any possibility of such accommodation by destroying not just political independence, but the cultural foundations that make independent existence possible for future generations. Celtic civilization doesn't simply lose political autonomy at Alesia. It loses the fundamental ability to exist as an independent culture capable of sustaining itself through traditional practices and beliefs. Roman systematic destruction of Celtic military capabilities, political leadership, economic resources, religious institutions, educational systems, and cultural traditions ensures that recovery becomes impossible, even if Roman political control weakens in future generations. The secret weapon doesn't just win immediate battles or temporary campaigns. It eliminates entire ways of life with efficiency that approaches natural catastrophe in its completeness and permanence. The broader implications of Caesar's innovation extend far beyond immediate Gallic politics to influence fundamentally the entire future development of warfare, imperial expansion, and cultural interaction throughout human history. The systematic approach perfected through Gallic campaigns becomes the standard template for all subsequent Roman conquests, providing a reproducible methodology for destroying any form of resistance through comprehensive application of Roman organizational advantages that prove effective against any enemy, regardless of geographical, cultural, or technological differences. Future Roman generals employ precisely the same principles against Germanic tribes beyond the Rhine, British kingdoms across the Channel, Parthian empires in the east, and North African peoples in the south, achieving similar results through systematic application of engineering superiority, psychological warfare, political manipulation, and logistical excellence integrated into comprehensive warfare systems. The fundamental lesson of Alesia, that superior organization defeats superior courage when properly applied through systematic methodology, echoes through subsequent history wherever Roman eagles cast their shadows across conquered territories. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Caesar's secret weapon lies in its complete adaptability to any enemy and any environment that Roman ambition might encounter. The same systematic approach that destroys Celtic Gaul proves equally effective against any form of resistance to Roman power, regardless of local conditions, cultural differences, geographical challenges, or technological capabilities. Roman military science has evolved beyond mere tactical superiority into a comprehensive methodology for analyzing, understanding, and ultimately destroying any opposition to Roman expansion through systematic application of superior organization and intelligence. The Celtic tribes never recover from their crushing defeat at Alesia because Caesar's secret weapon has eliminated not just their armies and political leadership, but their fundamental capacity for independent cultural existence. Those who survive Roman vengeance and systematic cultural destruction find themselves completely absorbed into a Roman civilization that has no place for their traditional languages, customs, laws, religious beliefs, or dreams of independence. Within just 2 generations, the proud warriors who once dominated Western Europe exist only as thoroughly Romanized provincials whose ancestors' struggles seem as remote and mythical as ancient legends. Caesar, as secret weapon, the systematic application of Roman organizational capabilities to create comprehensive superiority that no enemy can overcome through traditional methods regardless of their courage or determination, represents one of history's most decisive and influential military innovations. It doesn't just win individual battles, campaigns, or even extended wars. It systematically destroys entire ways of life, replacing them with Roman alternatives that prove impossible to resist, modify, or replace once they become established through systematic implementation. The terrifying efficiency of this approach makes Rome master of the known world while ensuring that Caesar's name and methods will be remembered and studied long after his Celtic enemies are completely forgotten by history. In the end, the secret weapon that destroyed the Celtic tribes and eliminated Celtic civilization forever was nothing more and nothing less then the organized application of Roman intelligence to the comprehensive problem of total conquest. But in Caesar's brilliant and ruthless hands, this deceptively simple concept became an instrument of destruction, so complete and systematic that it eliminated not just Celtic political independence, but Celtic civilization itself, leaving only ruined memories and Roman historical accounts where once proud peoples had ruled their ancient lands according to traditions that stretched back into the mists of prehistoric time. The systematic nature of this destruction ensures that it can never be undone or reversed, making Caesar's victory not merely a temporary military triumph, but a permanent historical transformation that fundamentally reshapes the entire future of Western civilization. The methods that destroyed Celtic independence become standard. Roman approaches to imperial expansion and cultural transformation, ensuring that the secret weapon perfected in the forests and hills of Gaul continues influencing human development long after Caesar's assassination and the eventual collapse of the empire he helped create through systematic conquest.